Welcome to Planet Grape Wine Review. I'm here with Catherine Fallis, Master Sommelier and founder of Planet Grape Wine Review. I'm Deborah Parker Wong, panelist for Catherine at the Wine Review and global wine editor for Somm Journal. We're here today in New Zealand. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Which is a greeting you would hear if you went to New Zealand. New Zealand's well known as the source of the world's best-selling Sauvignon Blanc with a very distinct style, but we're here today to talk about its second most popular grape variety,
and that is
Pinot Noir. Yay, our favorite. New Zealand is composed of two islands that are located really at the end of the world. The next closest continent is Antarctica.
It was the last landmass to be settled by humans, believe it or not. And it's all cool maritime if you're studying and learning, except for Hawke's Bay in the North Island and Central Otago all the way down south.
Right, so there are two kind of very distinct climates that occur in New Zealand. But before we move away from history entirely, New Zealand was settled by the same indigenous people that settled Hawaii.
That is correct.
And they are known as the Maori people. And having visited New Zealand, I learned a Maori song, and I'm going to share it with you today very quickly. Te aroa te whakapono, me te rangi Maori e, tato tatoa. I think I might have been off key there, but there we go. All right. Well, a little culture, a little interest there to take us into our work at hand, which is our discussion of our wonderful wines.
Yes, so let's talk about Pinot Noir in New Zealand and why it loves this country so much and why it thrives there. Pinot Noir as a grape, it's very difficult, it's very demanding, it's the diva of grapes, and it loves drama. And I don't know any other country on this planet that offers as much drama in the growing environment other than New Zealand.
It is a dramatic region, as you can see behind us here in our virtual landscape. We have got Lake Wanaka, right, which is the lake that is the centerpiece of Central Otago.
Surely is. It's very close to Queenstown, where you land and you drive through it on your way to the other regions. It's very dramatic, it's very breathtaking, it's very beautiful. Pinot Noir loves maritime. It functions really well there, and it loves a cool climate. And Pinot Noir ripens in New Zealand's extreme UV, so it ripens like a New World grape because you have a lot of sunshine. There's no more ozone layer over the country.
I heard it was repairing itself. Isn't that the
well?
Maybe.
If you look at the amount of cow dairy production, the methane, it's kind of destroyed the ozone, and maybe they can repair it. But so think of it's kind of like in Argentina, where there's extreme UV coming down on the slopes of the sun onto the snow melt, and it's reflecting back. It's like getting a really deep dark tan over a long period of time. So in New Zealand, the grapes are getting tanned, but it's very cool. So they're not hot, and so the amount of natural acidity that is retained in those conditions, coupled with a pleasing ripeness, not super sour, fruit.
So growing season is fairly short, though, right? So is it an extended growing season?
It depends where you are.
Depends where you are.
When we're talking about Central Otago, they're picking in April, which is our what is that? Our October.
6 months.
Yeah. So it's a full season. Lots of sun.
Lots of sun.
And but very cool. And that combination is just brilliant for Pinot Noir. And it allows the Pinot Noirs to be site expressive. And they're not being manipulated so much by winemaker imprints. They're allowed to show their origin.
Their transparency, which is something Pinot Noir does so well, that transparency of the terroir.
Absolutely.
We've got 3 wines from 3 different growing regions in New Zealand to talk about. So let's
But first, we're going to show you where in the country Pinot Noir grows in general. So there are a couple of isolated points in the country where Pinot Noir thrives. Just as in California, we have certain areas where Pinot Noir thrives. So in the country of New Zealand, on the North Island, you can find great Pinot Noir in Martinborough,
which is here on our map.
And there you can see it. And Martinborough was the first planting of Pinot Noir, and in fact, it was at Atarangi, which is reviewed in the companion article, which you'll see about this topic. soon on Santé Magazine. So Martinborough is a great area for Pinot Noir on the North Island. As you get further north in the North Island, it almost gets a little bit too warm, such as in Hawke's Bay.
Right, which is just north here in Hawke's Bay. But this is still relatively cool.
It's
of course,
very
extremely
cool.
maritime influence.
Very
right?
maritime.
Had
Very
we both
windy.
been there at that site, so we can remember how breezy it was. in the
Breezy, I think
afternoons.
that's an understatement. Do you remember in Wellington where the wind you're just walking down the street and the wind just pushes your body here, and pushes you over there, and then the rains just start.
Yes, the grapes love that though. The
it's
vineyards
just
love
boom,
that.
boom.
Wind keeps the vines healthy and keeps the fruit
Yes.
free of pressure from disease. So
Yes.
bring on the wind.
Yes,
We want the
I
wind.
mean the end result is that wow, I've survived, right?
Right, your hair has survived.
And so that's the North Island. So Martinborough is where you want to look for a great source of North Island Pinot Noir. And then on the South Island, Marlborough, of course, the engine room of the country.
Just stretch across the bay there, the Marlborough Sound, right?
And as you look at Marlborough, it's obviously the epicenter of Sauvignon Blanc production, but there are some beautiful tart, fresh, fruity, that crunchy kind of beautiful light tart Pinot Noir. There's a lot of that in Marlborough. We're looking at two regions today, Canterbury and Central Otago. So we'll look at each of those a little bit.
Canterbury being here. So we move south down the South Island, Canterbury being here.
And you can see the Southern Alps if you move the
right
picture
here,
up into
the spine of the Southern Alps. And of course, Central Otago being here. Catherine, does Canterbury benefit from the incredible rain shadow that the Southern Alps cast on Central Otago? Does it benefit from that as well?
It does. So we're going to look at Canterbury on the next slide.
Are you ready to go there?
And we're going to see that, on the other side of the Alps, it's like the wettest part of the world.
Absolutely, as well as the big island of Hawaii. So on the western side of the Southern Island, it's extremely wet, but the Alps just stop all that weather right in its tracks.
And so rain shadow is that term that, any of you obviously studied about wine, you've heard that term, and it's a very important term. It basically,
Argentina,
the mountains block
Alsace,
the progress of the rain. And so, it's very depressing and gray. And, I love Oz Clarke talking about the west end of the earth, and it's so miserable, but you come over to the sunny side of the mountains. And in Canterbury, between the Alps and Pegasus Bay, you have all of these flat areas that are pretty gentle and rolling hills, a lot of limestone, especially in North Canterbury, which is one of the sub-regions. It's a pending GI,
Waipara. Right, but as we get into Central Otago, we have more granitic soils and schistous soils, right?
Yes.
So there's a little difference in soil here. Could we expect to see that on the wines in Canterbury? The fact that there is more limestone, more calcare. Is that reflected in the wines?
Absolutely. Canterbury has its own style of Pinot Noir. It's not quite as dramatic. They're not quite as almost electric, energetic as you find as the wines of Central Otago, and they have slightly less struggle than they do in Central Otago.
So it's extreme wine growing, but not as extreme.
Not as extreme.
Okay.
So we're not bungee jumping in Canterbury.
Right. But it is still subject to those southern bustas, which is the cold winds that come up from the Antarctic, referred to as the southern bustas, which hit the coast there and very much influence wine growing in that region.
Absolutely. And so, as you can see on the slide, it's just surrounding Christchurch, North Canterbury just to the north a little bit, but the main area of Canterbury to the south of the city of Christchurch.
Great, and our wine today is from North Canterbury.
It is, yes.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that.
Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, so then let's talk about really the critical mass for Pinot Noir in New Zealand, the area to watch, the area that the world is watching, the area that the Burgundians are watching.
They've been collaborating too.
Is phenomenal. When you think about it, when you learn that Alberto Villain goes there frequently, and you hear, these names, you hear about all these collaborations both ways. It gives you pause. You're like, okay, this I gotta check out. And when I think when you fly into even the landing in Queenstown, You know,
Dramatic drama.
Only the most senior pilots are allowed to have that route.
Right. You come in at a sharp bank and you swing around and you see it all laid out there in front of you, and you can hardly wait to get down.
And many times the pilot has to try the landing again,
Couple times.
a second time, a third time. So even landing in Queenstown, you know, is just very
exciting.
dramatic.
Yeah, for sure.
It's also the vineyards in Central Otago are at the higher elevations. It's really, they're getting the most dramatic impact of the rain shadow. If the Alps were not there, it would be over.
There would be no wine growing whatsoever.
I don't think there would be even more than a couple pubs. Maybe a place to get a pie.
Well, people do ski there, you know. It's a ski town. We see people skiing there,
and bungee jumping and hiking.
Yeah, and lots of ecotourism there.
Rainforests and desert, and this is all in one day.
Yes.
This is not like through the season. Yes. This is all like in one day. So if you only have a weekend, go here. You'll do it all.
It takes you a weekend to fly there from Western.
It's true. A weekend to fly there. A weekend to do that. But Central Otago also, as geographical indications go, as GI, which is New Zealand's new,
the broader
appellation system.
Yeah.
As it goes, it's the only continental climate in the country. Everything else is cool maritime or moderately warm maritime.
Right.
This
continental meaning 4 seasons. You'll see snow.
Yes, and you do see snow. You know,
skiing obviously.
In summer.
Right. Oh, on the peaks of the Alps. Right.
Yeah, and so Central Otago, as a wine region of the world, is the coldest and hottest in New Zealand, and very extreme, and it's the most inland and elevated in the country of New Zealand.
Right.
So
it's about what, 800 meters up to 1500 meters?
Yeah, or even a little higher.
A little higher.
Yeah, and the vineyards are not on a flat field.
No,
they're little patches of land, just like in Burgundy,
carved out of the landscape.
Yeah, where they can find a plot of land that they can make it work.
Right. That has the right aspect and the right slope for optimal ripening. Right. Also water. Many of them are along the water. Yes, as well too. Okay, so let's go on to our next slide.
These are some of the regions, you know, and you were talking about the Burgundy exchange here earlier, as was I. You know, there's this synergy, there's this shared vision. There are a lot of folks that are really interested in this, including Blair Walters at Felton Road, one of the wines we're about to taste.
Absolutely. Well, when I was last there, I had the opportunity to see a celebration of the conclusion of a decade-long exchange program between interns in Central Otago and those in Burgundy. And the influence, it was fascinating. The influence of Burgundy could certainly be felt in Central Otago and vice versa. Central Otago's influence is being felt in Burgundy as well. So they're not trying to copy one another, but this incredible collaboration has done significant things for wine quality in Central Otago.
I think so too. Having been fascinated by New Zealand and well beyond this, you know, Wong story, you know, and looking at the Pinot Noirs and doing symposiums and presenting New Zealand Pinot Noir, you know, I found that some of the early Central Otago Pinot Noirs were unique, but a little oaky. You know,
maybe a little overworked, a little overextracted, maybe.
You know, and I think now, you know, we talk about, you wrote a great article, Central Otago 4.0.
Oh, right, that stage in their evolution.
I think it's almost like the growers are more confident. They're less reliant on oak. They're less reliant on looking just to the American market. I think part of that confidence has come from, you know, Comte de Vauguay, Aubert de Villaine, Domaine Jean-Jacques Hofferon, Domaine Thompson. You know, these producers coming over and spending time with them and saying, hey, you've got some great land here, you're doing great things.
Really encouraging them to let the transparency show and not try to mask it with anything, and to not work the wines as much in the winery, really making the wine in the vineyard, which you know, can sound like rhetoric, but is actually what happens.
And when you look at the alcohol levels, 14 is the high end.
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
At 13 and 13.5.
Sure. Moderate alcohol.
And coupled with high, fresh, mouth-watering natural acidity.
Right.
My mouth is watering right now.
I know. Let's get to the wines. Oh gosh, I'm excited now. You're really working me up here. This program, if you'd like to read more about the exchange program, please find the details in my article. You'll find it on my site, deborahparkerwong.com, under Central Otago 4.0.
Wonderful. It's a great article. great read. So we will be tasting the one wine from North Canterbury and then 2 wines today from Bannockburn, which is a very, it's the warmest, driest area. It's a pending GI, so that certification, that appellation should be coming soon.
Right, which has been mapped out. All the vineyards have been mapped. Everything's been scoped out and defined. And we're eager to see, this is a very important growing region. Again, those ideal conditions, all of the ideal factors kind of converging into one place to create an ideal space in this extreme growing environment. So we're eager to see that come to fruition.
And I think we want to show you this map, the theme of these maps. In fact, there's a book whose vineyard maps, it's a book on New Zealand. It's on my website on planetgrapewinereview.com. They have hired the man who does the Burgundy maps for the government in France to do the maps in New Zealand. And if you go back to the previous one for a second, you can see that it looks like those maps of Burgundy. And so it's just they're taking such care to carve out their little piece of land,
define their clothes, and define their
what does
cruise sites. Yeah, absolutely.
That's different from the next one, and not just blend it all and make industrial wine.
Absolutely.
Don't forget that New Zealand has, the highest average bottle price of wine in the world, and that's not Central Otago.
Time for a sip of wine.
That is the Sauvignon Blanc, believe it or not.
Right.
But Central Otago, 75% of their production is Pinot Noir. This is what they should be doing. To me, it's the most exciting thing happening in Pinot Noir in the world right now. It's really, really something to look for. Now, do keep in mind too that some of the wines that are still in our warehouses here throughout the country a few of them are the older style. So you need to get to the 16s, the 17s, the 18s, and the 19s, believe it or not, for the more entry-level Pinots are coming in now, and that's what you want to look for.
Okay, so if you happen to have those vintages prior to about 15 or 16 in your cellar on premise, then that would be a good point of differentiation. There and sort of is an ongoing shift in style that's occurring there, and that's a defining moment certainly for this region.
And I think that you want to do a special, blow them out, say bye-bye. Because let's focus on what is happening now in the Pinot Noir. So special, move it out, sell it to the employees, and order the next vintage.
Move on. So here we've got a look at the beautiful Felton Road Vineyard in Bannockburn. Absolutely one of the iconic sites. A rather lower lying site, rather loamy soils, as I recall, seeing the soil firsthand.
And look at those old vines. The average age here is about 14 years, but these are well over 30 years.
I was going to say 25 to 30, and that's the vineyard very close to the winery itself. And here you can see in the background the beautiful snow-capped peaks.
It's right there, and some of their vineyards are right here, in along the riverbank. Some are, you drive up these windy roads,
and a little higher elevation, different
vehicles.
Aspects. Yeah,
I remember getting out of the vehicle with one of the winemakers, and he said, "Come around this way," and I followed him blindly around a big kind of a rock, and there was a dead deer right there.
Oh my!
And he said, I was shocked. He said, "What's the matter? This is normal here." And I said, I'm from the city.
There's wildlife.
There's a big animal here.
There's wildlife.
Like, what's wrong with you, girl?
Well, I recall that that fishing along the local streams is also a very popular pastime for winemakers and vintners in Central Otago. So you could come across some fresh fish at a meal as well too.
Lovely.
One thing I recall seeing.
So, I tasted a lot of wine in researching my book, 10 Grapes to Know. And, I was fortunate enough to have visited New Zealand twice in that year of research. And I just wanted to taste everything. And I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of what is New Zealand Pinot Noir? Is there something in general that you can say this is kind of what they taste like? And it's kind of like when I was learning how to blind taste, like Pinot Gris, Grigio, what is it that they have in common? So I would taste dozens and dozens and dozens. I would start to highlight the common words, and I ended up with 3 words. And it was the same process here. I kept getting red berry fruit, which you get with Pinot Noir.
Right. Cooler climate, Pinot in particular. Yeah.
And I got a lot of sun-dried tomato paste, which I get in Italian wines, and I thought that was interesting. And then the dried herbs, yes, that comes up in other places, not Burgundy. But then I got spices, cumin, savory, and then black pepper, which
black pepper is a common marker for Pinot Noir, right?
I don't find it all that often, and certainly not in Burgundy.
New World, let's say New World,
sure. More. And then the floral, I think that's more common. But
right.
then the other thing, like salami or peppered salami or
umami notes and earthier meaty notes.
What's happening here? The earthy, the mushroom that you expect in Pinot. So I thought it was a unique combination of flavors, a spectrum that was totally unique and doesn't happen anywhere else in the world.
Yes, it seems like characteristics of Pinot, Old World Pinot, New World Pinot from warmer or cooler growing regions all kind of converge.
Yes.
And that's interesting, which makes it our favorite word, complex.
And delicious.
And delicious, another favorite word, one of our favorite words. Great. Well, this is fantastic. So this really gives us an idea of what to expect in the glass from a New Zealand Pinot Noir.
Yes.
You know, whether we're drinking Pinot that comes from Martinborough or Marlborough or Canterbury or Central Otago, we really should be looking for these characteristics.
Well, I think you don't have to look for these characteristics. These characteristics became clear to me. They showed themselves to me.
We could
yeah, I think that it's a good discovery for you to see if you find these things. But you know, I always encourage people to have their own discovery too.
Of course.
You know, let the wine speak to you. Just get in there and have that little dialogue with it. We're both educators. We can't help ourselves.
Right. Guidelines help. Yes. Guidelines help. Okay. Well, we are now on our first wine, so I'm going to take us out of share, and here we are. So our first wine
is the 2017 Mount Beautiful Pinot Noir, and this is from North Canterbury, so we're just north of Christchurch here, and you know, it's one of these wines that is just, you know, it's got that lean, fresh, kind of brisk and racy quality that you expect in New Zealand, but it's got the pretty red fruit, strawberry, raspberry. It's got the pink rose, the brown mushroom. It's got toasted almond and cinnamon raisin bread. It's just got a little bit of everything. It's also New Zealand sustainable. There's a big movement for that in the area. And it's one of my favorite producers in North Canterbury, the Mount Beautiful. And it's also not as hard to find as the Central Otago Pinot Noirs. There's a little bit bigger production. Mount Beautiful also, it's got a little kind of local color because the owner, who's also a scholar and entrepreneur, David, I'm sorry, I can't read his last name there, sorry. David Teese. So he believes that this is his homeland. He believes that this is going to be, you know, the best place in the world for Pinot Noir. And
he and a lot of other people.
Yes, and you know, it's really, I think it really captures New Zealand Pinot Noir, and it's again not as hard to find as some of these others. So if you're a larger operation, if you need more quantity,
look at our price point down here.
Yes, and that's our retail price.
Yeah, we're actually not sharing. We're not sharing. We're just talking, so they can't see the slide. They see. Okay. So Catherine, I have to say that I think that the flavor descriptors, and maybe I've been biased by your descriptors, but I think I'm tasting everything that you've described in this glass. I've got herbs, I've got umami, I've got red fruits, I've got this beautiful complex kind of combination of all those things, really elevated, really amazing. It's so tasty. I can't even get all the descriptors in.
And it's got all of this without being heavily extracted.
Oh, definitely medium body, you know, and good medium plus acidity here as well too. Absolutely delicious.
So let's move to Central Otago.
Go back to share here. Thank you. Great, and here's Central Otago. Now difficulty. Ooh.
Sound effects.
Ooh, so this wine is a Bannockburn wine, Bannockburn Pinot Noir. 13.5 alcohol for this, and that's at the high end of the range here. In terms of alcohol, we talked about alcohols being very, very moderate.
Yeah, you see up to 14, but that is it. I mean, no one's doing 14.5. No one's doing Santa Barbara 15.5. I mean, or San Lucia Highlands. I mean, this is very, mid-weight, which
okay. Winemaker here has decided to use percentages of whole cluster in this wine. So there's up to 40% whole cluster. Now, what can we expect from whole cluster vinification in terms of your wonderful list of descriptors? What might the stems be adding to that?
Also, the stems can add a little bit of a textural contrast. And then the whole cluster itself, you can get a juiciness there.
Maybe a little carbonic maceration occurring inside those berries, right? A little interberry fermentation. So, so the winemaker really likes to keep the wine on the skins until it's fermented to dryness, and definitely a little working of the cap, absolutely. And pressed off into barrels. What I was looking for was the percentages of new oak, which I don't.
So I think we're
here.
I think we're here. There is no obvious oak, and if you see my tasting note, I mentioned cedar and clove, and those are oak
tobacco
notes.
too. Well, this is a 2017, so these are definitely not tertiary characters. These are characteristics from oak aging. So the tobacco, cedar, and clove are going to come from oak, but it's we're very well integrated.
It's beautifully integrated. It's way in the background. It's just kind of like giving it a little bit of a, like the frame for your mattress. You don't buy the bed based on the frame. You buy the bed based on the mattress. And so in this case, the frame is the oak use here. It's just a little bit there to kind of give some structure to the wine. It's certainly not the dominant feature. And I love that about these wines.
I agree. I am going to add to the cherry and the pink rose a little bit of red licorice to that mid palate.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful.
Gorgeous.
For me, the focus of this wine is right on the mid palate. There's this burst of juiciness and fruit, but again, medium bodied, medium plus acidity, so nice and bright, really lifting all those volatile aroma compounds out of the glass and really driving the flavor profile and the finish of the wine.
A long finish.
So delicate on the nose. Cherry blossoms, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Very, very nice.
Okay.
And the final wine today.
Third and final wine. Splash a little in my glass there, Catherine.
I will splash a little in your glass. So we both visited this winery.
Absolutely.
What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I would say the hospitality of Blair Walters, the winemaker there, are absolutely memorable. There's as the region's iconic winery, one of the region's iconic wineries, and of course Blair Walter being, a 20-year winemaker there with the winery, certainly knows the place inside out and has a very good understanding of what he can achieve with those vineyards.
Yeah, and along with Nigel Greening, the owner of the vineyard.
Yeah.
What a great team. And I think, they're running the property biodynamically. There are several parcels, and when you go visit, if you're fortunate enough, you can be driven to all of these parcels. They're very close by, and you can see the differences in them, and then they'll blend the different lots together. I think this really kind of, this wine, it really, it is the benchmark for me for New Zealand Pinot Noir. It is the one wine that you would say could be the role model. And it's taken very, very seriously. Unfortunately, there's not much of it made, but if you're going, this is a must visit.
Right, absolutely.
And not only for the wine, they're very interested in taking care of their vineyards. They have a lot of animals. Right. And in particular, there's one animal that impacted me. I don't know if this biased my tasting. Deborah's article on sensory bias was interesting, and I was asking her before this. So there's a cat, and the cat happens to be named Jancis. Okay. So my hero, my role model, Jancis Robinson. Who else was there when I was learning about wine? There as far as women. So when I get there and they say, "Oh, that's Jancis the cat," I was like, you're kidding me, right? The cat is named Jancis.
There's a sense of humor at Bannockburn. There's a sense of humor there at Felton Road. There's no question.
The whole country has a great
sense of humor.
Absolutely love the folks there. So anyway, I had been on this trip, and it was cold, very cold, and very blustery outside. And I go into this beautiful, warm tasting room, and the cat jumps up on my lap.
Oh, he wants warmth too. Yeah, he wants to feel your warmth.
And through my entire tasting, this cat, Jancis the cat, is sitting on my lap purring, and I was like, I love these wines. But then I tasted them later to make sure that, have I been influenced by this cat named after my
this very friendly cat? Well, that was the traditional use for small animals, keeping warm.
To keep you warm, yes, and it worked.
It works at Felton Road too.
And I have to say, the wine does excel with the cat or without the cat on your lap. It's just
I did not have a cat experience, but I can tell you that this wine that Blair has used 20% whole cluster in this particular wine, and that the wine was aged for 13 months in 27% new oak. So that's a very specific percentage, less than 30% new oak. And of course, the oak is seamless in the wine. Even the 2018 vintage, it's just beautifully integrated and showing up there, of course, in Catherine's tasting note as cedar and leather. And here's that peppered salami note that you like so much, and some cumin.
Yeah, I don't know. There's this combination, and I didn't put it in this note here, but I typically get the floral, a little pink rose or fresh rose petal, a little floral note, a beautiful perfume. It's so delicate, but it's not. Again, like you keep saying, they're not trying to emulate Burgundy. They can't. It's
and why would you?
It is a different.
They don't need to.
They don't. But I have to say that this dialed back style of Pinot Noir is so well received by sommeliers who love Burgundy, and many of them do, because it's such a delicate and difficult grape. I have to say, the chase to find that sweet spot, to find that right Pinot Noir at the right price, that's showing well at the right time, that you can get more of. I mean, it's kind of like, you're always chasing that, and New Zealand gives you that. So you don't have to.
It's delivering.
It's deliver. It's not elusive. You can have it, and it's a fraction of the price. So we're going to, talk. We're going to close the segment by talking a little bit more specifically for on-premise, for sommeliers, wine directors, for staff, for management and bartenders. So how do you sell this? What makes it different is it's terroir driven. It's site expressive like Burgundy. But at the same time, I don't know, you probably have your own word for it, but for me, there's a vivacity, there's an energy, there's something that you feel, and it's not just the high acid, it's just got.
I say the wine's alive.
It's alive.
It's lively. Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird to say. I feel like
no, not at all. Well, we know that wine is a living thing. From a molecular standpoint, we know wine is a living thing. It's constantly changing in the bottle, but when you taste a wine in a glass that's alive, there's no denying it. When you taste a wine, unfortunately, it can be described as dead. There's no denying that either. So, but not these wines. That is not a problem they have.
And the other thing is that, they are ripe enough.
Oh yeah, there's no sour fruits here. We're not talking about unripe.
They're not sour. They reach Pinot Noir ripeness.
Yes.
You're drinking
physiological and physiological ripeness. We'll leave it at that.
And the thing is, because of this and the freshness, the high natural acidity, you can pair it with even the most subtle dishes. So if you're doing a very delicate, kind of
roasted branzino, please.
And the other thing is the price. So compared to Burgundy, a half, a quarter, a fraction of the price of Burgundy.
Right.
Accessible.
So margin there as well too. And if you're a savvy operator.
You may have noticed that all three of these wines have a screw cap. New Zealand has the highest percentage of wines finished in screw cap in the world. So this tableside, you may feel like,
could that be a deterrent? Could that be a deterrent?
I think in the past you could say that, and these days not so much.
No, alternative packaging. I don't even know why we call it alternative packaging, but different closures are definitely being embraced. Yeah. So no one's going to be offended by a screw cap at the tableside, assuming it's opened correctly.
And the other thing is, so we know we have the ripeness, we have the freshness, and we know we don't have so much bulkiness in 4.0 in the current releases
The
coming
current
out of the country.
iteration. Yeah.
I like to quote a local who says that their wines are not candy, chunky buggers like other New World Pinot Noirs. And when he looked at me directly in the eyes and knew that I was from California, I knew he was talking about California wines.
Of course he is. We're very guilty of that. But you know,
Chunky buggers.
chunky buggers. Well, some of them. Of course, we need a range of style across all grape varieties and growing regions. There's a wine for every person and a person for every wine.
This is
So,
true.
on that note,
Cheers.
concludes our segment here from New Zealand.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.